Welcome back to the Roman Road Show. And today, what are we talking about?
We're talking about the movie Glass, which just came out this past week. We were able to catch it, and we're going to have a spoiler-filled discussion about it because I think this movie kind of needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
Kind of our thoughts on it, what we liked, what we didn't like.
Yeah. And you know, Shyamalan movies have twists, so a big part of it will be the things we're going to be talking about. So if you don't want to hear about that, watch it anyway. We need the views, please.
And we did not see this movie together, so
we got a very different, we came from different spots. We didn't get to talk about it right after, so we've been hungering for it. Just to surmise, either way, it's the end of a trilogy, starting with Unbreakable, going to Split, and then now ending with Glass.
So first of all, what was your where do you stand on Unbreakable and Split? Those movies.
Unbreakable was for the longest time one of my favorite movies.
Okay, same here.
And then Split was, I thought, a very good movie. It was sort of it was kind of spoiled to me that it was like in universe. But if you're watching it, you don't have to watch the first movie. You don't have to watch Unbreakable to get Split.
Well, because it's only until the end, right?
And it's still a very interesting, good movie. It's got I don't know if would you call it a horror movie?
The thing is, I've never seen Split.
Oh, really?
I tried to catch it before I saw Glass, but I just didn't get the chance.
You would enjoy it, I think. It's very much just to premise it out for you. Basically, the guy kidnaps girls because he's got DID,
dissociative identity disorder.
Basically, split personalities, and the whole point is
I did a paper on that in high school.
Overall, and the thing is, his psychiatrist in the movie is trying to prove that this diagnosis actually exists because in modern psychiatry it's considered to not be a real diagnosis.
It's not. Yeah, there's no really. It's not confirmed that it's a real issue.
Yeah, and that's what she was trying to do in the movie. And now in the movie, obviously, they go through great lengths to prove to you, to show to you that in this movie at least it is a real thing. It's so real, in fact, that his different personalities have different. One of them has diabetes, and he truly needs insulin whenever he's on it. He's in a particular personality, but somehow his brain, because all his personalities are trying to protect the core personality, man named Kevin Wendell Crumb from having to deal with the world. So all the personalities will take charge at different times, but eventually a personality that is an amalgam of animals at a zoo that he works at form together to create this super strong personality that could deal with anything. That's a psychotic zealot that likes killing things. And it basically he's he believes he can climb a wall real well, so he starts climbing. He's thinks he's animalistic, he becomes animalistic, but more to the point, he believes and thus becomes super strong and bulletproof. At the end of the movie, that's whenever they show it. And they talk about that in Glass, which is the third movie.
So I did read up on the story of Split, and going back, Unbreakable is, like I said, one of my favorite movies for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I was so excited to get a sequel to it. So when I heard Split was in the universe and kind of had that at the end, we're in the same universe, I was like, okay, great. It didn't really get me to go see Split any quicker. But when they announced Glass, I was like, for sure, I need to see this opening night. And it's a mixed bag.
Well, it's a mixed bag because
the thing I can say.
From what I understand, most people seem to have either a problem with the beginning or the end. And I generally enjoyed it across the board. I could see where people are having, I wish they'd done this differently. They didn't quite like the M. Night Shyamalan twist that they did at the end. What would be your core? Should we talk about the movie first and then talk about it?
I guess, okay, so I did enjoy this movie.
That's but bubble. Sorry, I wasn't I'm tired of your speaking. Why do you hate good things? Shyamalan did one good thing this year.
So this is what I'm hearing over YouTube and other reviews is a lot of people say it's a bad movie, and a lot of people say I enjoyed it. I don't hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's a good or a great movie," and I agree. Even though I'm in the I guess. I don't know. I don't even know where the minority is here. Who liked it or who didn't like it.
I can't believe people are saying it's a bad movie. If nothing else, the shots in it I love. The visual tone. I think it's just I appreciate it's aesthetically pleasing.
Well, I can see why people call it a bad movie, and I would agree with them to a certain extent.
Give it to me. Why?
But
why are they wrong?
It doesn't. Okay, so in Unbreakable, we get David Dunn, who's Bruce Willis' character. He realized he's like some superhero in the real life, and I like how they treat it in the real world, and I like how they continued that.
To this day, the most realistic portrayal, in my opinion, of what superheroes would be if they happened in the real world.
Yes.
Also, that whole thing about David Dunn. A lot of superheroes have matching letters.
The alliteration.
What is it? Peter Parker, Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent.
Bruce Wayne.
Oh shit. I fell. It's wrong. It falls apart. No, I can't like.
Yeah, people like anymore. Johnny Storm and
yeah,
and Sue Storm. Actually, that's actually
was it the girl from what is it? Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones. Frank Castle.
Yeah. This isn't a good game to play with a dyslexic. Are you happy that you're winning with me? You feel fucking proud?
Yes, I do.
Good. Any freaking way. So what? You didn't.
Okay, so I like that they kept that part of it, but the problem is the story that he tells in class isn't a proper way to finish up the story that he started in Unbreakable. It's a great, from what I know about Split, it seems like story wise it continues a story of Split. Great, it brings in the characters from Unbreakable, but it doesn't like wrap up the story that they started Unbreakable. That's I guess the problem that I'm thinking about it. That's the problem I have with it. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the movie and I enjoy the story it told. But if you take it back, it seems much more a sequel to Split than it does a conclusion to Unbreakable. If that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree because in my mind, it seems like it is the natural conclusion to what would happen in that scenario. Basically, you can't go around playing vigilante. You know, you get in trouble, you get arrested, and then things tend to go.
See, but I did like that. I did like how it ended, but I guess it feels kind of hollow to me. I guess unearned.
Let's unfold the movie then. Let's start from the beginning to end. So, all right, it starts off with basically. It turns out that if you've seen Unbreakable, David Dunn decides to continue being a vigilante. He walks around the street and he has the ability that whenever he makes physical contact with people, he can tell when they've done something bad.
Yeah.
And he kind of sees it where they're at doing the bad thing, so he could use it to track them down. So he basically he says he'll go for a walk, and then he just bumps into people and he decides who's gonna be, like, whenever he sees what's the worst thing, and he'll go and try and stop them.
And what I liked about that was like his son who was like a little kid in the Unbreakable, it's all grown up and same actor.
I love
and he's
that.
helping him, so it's like, you know, the really Batman and Robin and
he's gotten a job. His job originally was
security
guard at a university. Now he actually has his own security business where he sells cameras and such and does installation. And it's like, I like that. That's a great real job to give somebody for this. It was perfect. And what his son does, he seems to keep searches online, keeps track of what the cops are looking into his dad about and trying to see, like, I guess
maybe I want a little bit more of that.
I could see that. That would have been really interesting to see. I love the relationship with him and his dad because you feel so bad for you almost kind of hate his son for thinking that his dad could be a hero or however. Like, they kind of make you dislike the kid, but after a while you 100% empathize. But see, that's hero worship of your father. That's what that's about.
But since I was implanted him when he was a kid, because at the last scene, one last scene's in Unbreakable is whenever, you know, Bruce Willis, he tells his son, because at the end of Unbreakable, he helps those two kids that were like kidnapped by some guy, and then it's in the newspaper. And then they're up to the breakfast table, and Bruce Willis just kind of like slides over the newspaper. The kid sees it, looks at it, and then Bruce Willis goes, like, don't say anything. And it was me.
Like, that kid was a great kid actor. He's pretty good, like, you know, he got teared up. Anybody who can do the almost crying but not quite crying eyes, they're a fantastic actor. And that kid did it. I cried, man. I was a young kid and hit all the right spots for me. And it's like it hit every issue I had.
So. I guess, and it's okay. It seems okay. So the movie, the beginning, we got David Dunn, his son. He's looking for people. He finds what they're calling the Horde, which is Kevin Wendell Crumb and his personalities, 24 personalities,
and they're all coming together. Basically, they're trying to find more victims. They believe that
because at the end,
eat people who haven't suffered in life, who basically had a good life.
Well, the beast has to, right?
The beast has to become stronger. And you've seen from the commercials, if you've seen it at all, it's a bunch of cheerleaders. You know, the quintessential victim. Sorry.
No, and then so he saves them, and which was great, a great opening. But then so that's like the first third of the movie, and then they get captured and go to a psychiatry hospital, that's where it's like it feels like a totally different movie.
It does.
It feels like we needed the whole movie of David Dunn fighting,
I would have enjoyed that.
Fighting, because at the end of Unbreakable, he says, okay, I am going to be a superhero. I think I would love to see in the whole movie where he is like the superhero, like the Dark Knight kind of movie where he's building up, and then it's like the Beast. Yeah. Okay, then that's almost like the ultimate villain. And then he captures it
because he's basically got the same, very similar abilities to him, and he sort of came to to becoming a villain in a very similar stretch to how he became a good guy. Except whereas David Dunn had he had a nemesis that he thought was his friend. The Horde had their psychiatrist who was trying to help them, but that was actually the Beast, and the other personality saw it as a threat to them. Yes. So that was a very
okay,
because you didn't get to see that one, but that just so you know, they've had a lot of parallel arcs in the split to Unbreakable.
That's what I kind of got. Okay, so one thing, kind of stepping aside from plot wise, is that M. Night Shyamalan, director, he has a tendency, he does cameos. Okay. He really can. So some of his cameos are pretty bad. So then, since you reveal that Split and Unbreakable are in the same universe, you have Shyamalan come back as his Split cameo character.
Yes, and it turns out.
And then he's all like, oh, I remember you, Bruce Willis.
15 years ago.
I was in some bad company. Positive thoughts now. And you're like, did you really have to clarify that it's the same character?
It's his ways to signify that he's, what is it? This is just in case you forgot it was a Shyamalan movie. To make sure you remember.
I was all for the cameo. No, like up until before he recognizes Bruce Willis, I was like, "Oh, it's a cool little cameo. He's doing a great job." And kind of that awkward. I like the awkward when the son and the dad. Bruce Willis said, "I'm gonna go for a walk," and the son's like,
he's like, "I'm gonna go for a walk." And, Dad, you really don't need to go for a walk today because he doesn't get it. He's just like,
"Let your dad go for a walk."
Yeah, the way he said it was perfect.
But then just like, "Oh, I remember you, Bruce Willis." Like, "Oh, you really have to do that, Shyamalan? Come on."
And it's all like. Dude, my character's name isn't Bruce Willis. Oh, dang it. Can I give a criticism that's totally unwarranted?
Go ahead.
I thought Shyamalan got fat.
Oh, he has,
yeah.
He has.
Like,
Shyamalan, we like this movie, but I'm sorry.
Don't look, you could do better than this. So
okay.
Moving on, now they're the psychiatric crazy person home.
And you have...
And they actually set it up, even though they're basically trying to convince them that, no, you don't have super abilities, you're just crazy people.
Yes.
But...
you have Sarah Paulson playing the psychiatrist.
Yes, very well, I thought.
And it's funny, I like her as an actress. Mm-hmm. The funny thing is, like, I remember the first time I saw her was in the first season of American Horror Story, and I hated her.
She was a bad person in there.
And then I realized, it's because I hated the character.
If you continue to watch any of them and see, sometimes she plays multiple characters in one season. She has range.
Oh yeah, because I loved her in the second season. I was like, that's why I fell in love with her. And she's like, she's a really great actress.
She is. I will say, all right. So basically, they're trying to convince them that they're regular people that have issues, but in each of their rooms, they've set up ways that. Basically, it's their weaknesses. So in
David Dunn's the water. That's the one he realized in Unbreakable is he's like allergic to water.
What is it? Hoses all around his room, and if he ever gets out of line, they blast him with them.
Unlike normal people, he can die in water.
Well, the thing is, and like they say, it's not even that it weakens him. It's not like kryptonite. Basically, he says he swallows it too fast. Yeah. Which I think is actually there's a medical condition where instinctively, whenever you go underwater, parts of your sort of close off so you don't take it in too quickly. Like, there's even a reaction. Whenever you get water on your face, it instinctively picks up, like, your heart rate and a bunch of other things so you don't drown. He doesn't have that reaction, so he does continue, like, basically, where if you go underwater, some people don't, most people don't have to hold their nose. He really should because it just goes all in. He doesn't have anything to stop it, so he drowns him. With the Horde, they didn't establish why flashing light basically switches his personalities.
Yeah, he switched back through
They didn't identify why, though.
I think it's the thing with the seizure thing, isn't it? Like,
I know it's an epileptic, but they didn't, in my opinion, identify.
But it was only if one of the violent alters would come forward.
It was for anyone.
No, because you could see, like, he would be his different... He would switch in between, like... Because he's... One of his alters is Hedwig, the little boy, who's hilarious. But, like, anytime the Beast would want to take over, it would... The lights would switch and, because you could tell that And it was any time that he tried to, because remember when he was Hedwig, he was trying to go to the door and it would switch it.
Yeah.
Because each altar has a, like distinct wants, desires.
Yeah.
So like there's one where like the little boy character wants to escape, but it'll switch over to somebody who would just kind of like, oh,
they don't care, or they're like,
or like even one of them said like, what am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing here, you know? Which is interesting.
So from there it moves on to they bring in the character. Oh, what was it? Mr. Glass.
Mr. Glass, Samuel Jackson, man, Elijah Price.
Have him entirely sedated because he's so smart that even though he's confined to a wheelchair, he was continually escaping. So they just keep him constantly sedated. Spoiler alert time. It turns out that he'd been cheeking the medicine and hiding it inside of his wheelchair.
And taking aspirin or something.
Yeah,
right?
And switching it out with the proper dosage. Like he'd get out and he'd find out ways that like there's somebody whose car would backfire regularly, so he knew that's when he could open the door and it wouldn't set off the bang whenever you open up a door in the hospital and in his room. So that way he could open the door, switch out his meds.
So this whole middle section, it's like the psychiatrist is trying to convince them that they're not superheroes, that they have
3 days until, she said basically the police will take them. But really, I think it was 3 days until they were going to like handle them for good. Spoiler alert, the actual...
how did you feel about this middle section? I mean... Because
it brought up the tension.
Very slow though, and I think it takes too long.
I can see that.
Even though it was enjoyable, I like the scenes because
he likes long, drawn out shots that are a little unnecessary, where it's somebody reacting to something, and it shows like the school that the character who went into Split is the same school that his son went to, because they zoomed in on a picture of him that was a little unnecessary.
I like that it was kind of like, okay, it's all in the same world, same town.
They really hit on it constantly.
But it was like hitting the nail on the head a little too hard.
And frequently. It's like, well, now it's like, whenever if you hit a nail too hard in and you start getting the dent of the hammer, you gotta stop.
Okay, and so that crack in the pavement, the little hole where it fills up with water at the end.
Yeah.
There's a shot that basically just sets it up, and it's just like, you see the water tank.
Yeah.
And then like pans down and you see like this hole in the pavement, and you're like, okay, there's a hole in the pavement. I guess it's gonna
come into place
later, and it's kind of like he did
foreboding.
It seemed like that stuff was kind of too on the nose, and then the whole like David Dunn's wife in Unbreakable, they were going to get divorced, but then they ended up staying together, and then she has since died of like cancer,
lymphoma, blood cancer,
and then but it was kind of on the nose where the psychiatrist talking to the son saying, "Oh, and your mom died, right, from cancer so many years ago. How are you feeling about that?" It's kind of like.
I was going to say, I would like that her character, every time they had a way of saying, okay, it's plausible that they're basically, they're trying to mess with her or whatever, or they're trying to like get the dad out, they're trying to do something. She, every time, was always a step ahead of everybody. She was a step ahead of people trying to escape. She is, like, every time you're like, oh, they're going to get away, she would, like...
So that one scene, when they're in that pink room, and they have all the characters, they have Glass, they have David Dunn, they have the Horde. And she's talking to him. That scene I thought was great, and it seemed like they could have. It encapsulates so much that some of the other scenes that were around it kind of were redundant. It felt
that scene was great because basically that whole scene is them explaining why they've got abilities, and she's explaining logical ways that show they don't. So, for instance, in Split, there's a scene where he started bending bars open, and then he got hit with the shotgun, but it didn't hurt him. And she tells him. It's like, well, those bars they were from the 18th century, and it was that shotgun. The shells had been in there, and it was damp. They lost. Also, the bars caught most of the ammunition, and they didn't have as much power. And you could see it was really hitting you.
When he's as Patricia, right? Is this the name of the altar? And then she starts doubting. I love that though. That was what I love, was that the altars, then each of them had their own like point of view, and like she's doubting, but then some of the other altars are like, no, the beast will.
I like the way they made real and stuff. What was his name in the movie? The superhero name though, not the Green Cape or the Green Guardian.
The Green Guardian, and then the Overseer.
The Overseer is the character's name for the hero. I like the way she made him doubt, because his ability, on top of super strength, was his ability to sense when people were going to do something bad. And she explains that the way magicians can do a cold read on somebody,
like mentalists,
mentalists, and know stuff about them by observing them, basically doing a Sherlock Holmes. That he was probably doing the same thing and not noticing it. So he's like, he said, I know there's a place. He's going to a place where there's red brick.
So he had a stain on his pants, so you could...
you saw the red stain, and then you also noticed, because there was an alert out for a guy who was psychiatric issues, so you saw a guy acting strangely, and then you saw that he had red dust on him, so you just deduced where he could be, and you think you've got an ability. You hallucinate the vision, and it made him doubt about it. So it made us doubt too, and it made me think like, no, you're making heroes not real, and I hate.
And that's the part that I liked. Excuse me. That's the part that I liked about it.
You realize that the overseer's weakness is literally people raining on his parade.
If Shyamalan had, if he really meant that, he would have like knocked that. You know,
he would have let you know that.
He would let you know.
He would let you get my joke.
So, okay. So before we get to the last act of the movie where stuff goes down, and I think this is what most people have a problem with.
Understandably.
Everybody, all the actors in this movie, they bring their A game, and they're all good. Even the supporting actors. So you got
orderlies. I really like the orderlies. Give them a lot of personality.
Yes,
they keep thinking. You keep setting it up for scenes where they're going to be real bastards, but it seems like they're just like, you know, it's like, no, they were just, that was like, that they're not bastards. They're just like guys doing their job. There's even a scene where it literally seems like it's going to be setting up for one of them to be abusing Mr. Glass.
Yes.
And he doesn't do it. Later on,
he's trying to trick him to make sure if he's not taking his meds.
Yeah, basically he's trying to see if he would twitch. And there's a scene where at the end, the Horde says, "You were hurting him." He wasn't hurting him. I don't think he'd ever been hurting him, but it's Mr. Glass manipulating the Horde. It's good.
So Sam Jackson, like so that's the thing. That's what I like about his character. He's manipulating everybody. Mm-hmm. And I like, it kind of follows through that everything he's doing is just to trick everybody. And I kind of like how it goes back on showing, how he tricks everybody.
He's the epitome of what the comic book villains were. They believe they're the good guy, and they truly believe that any means justify the end. His end is to show the world that heroes exist, that there's extraordinary people there, and he thinks the world will be better for it. And in that pathway, he will murder en masse and manipulate people and be a very bad person.
So the end.
Dun, dun, dun.
Mr. Glass, he's able to escape his room, and he makes friends with the Horde.
Yeah.
And they're able to escape. Mm-hmm. And he then tells Bruce Willis' character, David Dunn, that he's going to go, has this plan to go to this new building that they're
they're revealing this opening of the Osaka building,
and that there's a chemical
plant for like 2 levels
in there, so he's gonna blow it up or something.
He's gonna because he shows that he knows how to use explosives and chemicals, and he's a smart guy, and he's gonna, while there are a bunch of people there, he's gonna set it off and kill all these people. He's deactivated the security measures in his room with the exception of the steel door. So he said, your kryptonite's gone. All you have to do is beat down the steel door. But bones break whenever they hit steel doors.
But that's the thing. So he could have easily just like gone and opened the door and like been like, "Hey, come out." So, but he needed.
He wanted him to believe in him,
and it showed
that because he had also started to doubt himself, and he starts ramming the door, but it's not doing anything at first, and it's like he needs to build up it again, and you see. He hits it the first couple times, nothing happens. On the 3rd time, there's a big dent in it. On the 4th time, it flies off its hinges.
And then it leads us to the
climax.
The climax, which is great. I loved it.
Yeah.
Up until the twist, because there was a few minutes after the twist, and I was like, I don't know. And then like another twist happens, you're like...
Great fight scene.
The really fight scene.
I love the sound. It's just like 2 guys who really don't know. They wasn't doing like... hardcore kung fu choreography, which you see a lot in most movies. It was just
brutal force
against animal strength, and like the choreography for him fighting like an animal was fantastic. Like the way he moved and like
and then the reactions of everybody else sell the scene, because you got the 2 girls that the Horde get, and he locks them in the van and their reactions when the fight's happening outside.
Because it shows normally you just see like they just focus on the action scene. In this movie, they're inside a van, they're fighting against the van, and you see like dents getting punched into it, and it's so intense.
See, and that's what I loved. And I was like expecting, so okay, I have a feeling that they're not going to end up at the tower. And but I would like to see what would happen to the tower.
Oh, yeah. There's a great, I have to say, even the way he shoots, like, whenever the Horde eats a guy.
Oh, yeah.
So close up. They don't show as much gore as you think. They literally just show.
But it's from the point of view of the guy.
Exactly. That's what makes it more intense. Like, oh.
See, I love that. That's what I loved about the movie.
He's got, like, one of the guys has, like, a shield on him, and he's just beating it down because he's, like, just in savage mode, and another guy tries to help him, and he murders him.
And see, that's the thing. That's where Shyamalan shows that he knows how to direct.
Yeah, he knows. Yeah.
But, okay. So then, like, the SWAT team comes in to, like, detain him.
And that's SWAT team.
But see, that's...
Or the first SWAT team, because there's two teams.
The first SWAT team is the one that they're able to beat up.
Yes.
And Bruce Willis, like, knocks some guys into a container and seals them in.
For their safeties.
And then the Beast eats one of them.
And you don't notice at first. Well, I mean, you kind of notice it, but it doesn't really click until later that all of this stuff is being caught on security cameras because they set them all up so that they could monitor the patients.
Yes.
And so they're...
Well, specifically Mr. Glass, because that he had gotten out of his room and they were like...
Where now there's 100 and some cameras here. And at first it just seems like really interesting, or really... it just seemed like a cinematographic choice of just like, this will make it look more like real and gritty. But I gotta say, that was the twist I didn't expect. So there was multiple twists in there. We're going on.
Okay, so then the first twist is that the SWAT team and psychiatrist lady, what was her name?
Don't remember. And such a sad scene.
That they're part of a secret organization that are trying to eliminate these super ability people.
Yeah, basically. They are aware. They said it was like for 3,000 years or something.
Yes.
They've been keeping it under wraps. Like where they reference that like back in the day that the whole thing of comic books come from glyphs and stories of heroes. And he believes that there used to be heroes like this and that some, for whatever reason he didn't know, they've been suppressed. And it turns out the group, the secret organization, I think is connected to Cloverfield. Because that's gonna be the next tattoo on like the wrist or something of a little black clover. That's what I think it's a clover. Our club.
Yeah. So the bee. Oh, okay. So then you find out. So no, this the first twist is that you found out that the reason that the Beast is or Kevin Willicrum has all the altars.
He had an abusive mother
because his dad had died. Did they say that in Split that his dad had died?
They said that his dad went away. He just said that it went away. So the reason they said like the Beast stays in the train yard, and the psychiatrist said the reason he's in the train yard is because your dad left on a train.
On a train.
That's how she said it.
So his dad had gotten on a train, the one that crashed, and he died, but it was the same train that David Dunn, Bruce Willis' character, was in, that he survived.
That proved that he was a hero to Mr. Glass.
That Mr. Glass had messed with the train to cause it to crash. Yeah. So Bruce Willis' son tells...
He turned it from get there safely to die.
So that's just that little switch. You have to switch it. So then David Dunn's son had done some research, some snooping, found that out, tells the Horde that
a full beast mode on top of a truck.
That Mr. Glass was responsible for his father's death. So then the Horde... What does he do? He like grabs.
He's just like
he punches. Doesn't he punch him in the gut?
Like claw style. Like he grabs his arm and it breaks him. And then whenever like the good guy. Oh, the way he is explaining it as it happens is great. I have to say like another classic. He's listing all this stuff from comic books. He's like if the comic book guy from The Simpsons was freaking cool. And to push him away, he does like a pop. He just hits him in the chest and rolls him away.
But it cracks his ribs or something. So he's in pain. And he falls out of his wheelchair. And just that scene that shot where he falls in the wheelchair onto his knees and you hear the bones crack as he slams against the pavement. And you're like, oh my God.
You feel for him.
You feel for him. So then, this is where I was expecting for David Dunn and for the Horde to kind of team up. But they fight. Or was it...
I mean, it's not like they're going to let's team up and beat this person in a wheelchair with bonitis to death.
Well, see, this is where I was thinking that you were going to find... Okay, so... I don't know. Like, see, that's the thing. Thinking back, I don't remember which twist happens when... But we found the SWAT is a part of the secret organization. And they're there to kill him. I was kind of expecting then the Horde and David Dunn to like team up and kill those guys. But then the Horde... He's in beast mode, and the girl who was in Split.
They even keep referencing her to as the victim.
She comes on. She's able to kind of calm him down and change his alter to Kevin Wendell Crumb, which is his real identity, which is hidden. And that's when the SWAT team shoots him. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's great. Mm-hmm. But I was expecting him to turn to the Beast and then attack him and then maybe die on later. But he just...
But do you get why? Because that girl, she had an ability. It was like she brought him back. There's a scene where they show whenever she touches his arm, because he'd never gotten contact, and that's one of the things that can bring him back.
I love that. See, that's the thing.
But he the same reason. Well, do we just jump to basically the overseer? They just drown him in a puddle, and they just keep smashing his face, and they just drown him.
That's the part that I don't like. They drown him in a bloody puddle
because it's his weakness. And the same thing, they were only able to, literally the reason he died in that girl's arms is because he was in her arm. The Beast, because she kept him weak. She kept him. He said, "I'm gonna stay in the light until it fades away," and it's like that's the reason why. The reason they didn't team up against that organization is because they didn't know it existed. She only the psychiatrist told Mr. Glass when he was dying, and then she walked over and told the overseer as he was dying. They just thought they were regular cops until they were already dead, because they're smart. They were really good at being a secret organization. They really kept it secret except for the tattoos on their wrists
and then hanging out in the restaurants and stuff. Okay, so it shows us the scenes where they're in the restaurants. And regular people leave, and then they get all quiet and start talking.
Just having a regular cop, a noisy restaurant, and then people leave.
Are the cooks and the dishwashers and the bussers in on the?
They have to be. I really got the impression that they're pretty much regular people who are controlled, basically an Illuminati with less financial power. I mean, it has to. Or to be fair, that's why they use the Mexicans. They're like, what are they saying in English? I don't know, because I speak only Spanish. That's what I thought. On the other hand, part of me is like, man, if you can get a secret organization meet up at your restaurant, it's like they're guaranteed to pack it up. At least 2 times a month, I'm joining the Illuminati.
Okay, so then all 3 of our main characters die. The Horde gets shot. Mr. Glass, he gets his bones broken and he bleeds out and dies. And Bruce Willis gets drowned in a bloody puddle.
It was brutal.
So that's the thing. I was like, great that he did that. Great that he killed them off. And part of me was like, okay, they're not coming back. They're not coming back.
Or will they? Twist!
They don't!
Well, I mean, they haven't made the other movies. So you never know. God, I'm just saying, because it's Shyamalan.
Okay, I was like, okay, so spoilers for another comic book movie, Avengers Infinity War. In that, everybody also dies. And it's in a powerful moment.
Half of everybody.
Half of everybody. Half of everybody. Yeah.
He's like, but I snapped both of my fingers. I only meant to snap this finger.
But we know that we already have a trailer for the new Spider-Man movie out. Mm-hmm. So we know okay, Spider-Man coming back. Nick Fury, Sam Jackson is in that movie too, and he dies.
Yeah.
But he's coming back. So
I was saying the movies that they're showing, they're prequels. What is it? Captain Marvel. That's a prequel.
That is a prequel. Yeah. No, but I'm saying Spider-Man.
That one. How are they doing that one?
It's confirmed that it's after.
It's after it.
So I don't know.
There could be another Spider-Man. They didn't. Who knows? Clones and whatnot.
We got to see the movies. Okay, we can't. But you know that it's going to be reversed. So then it was like, okay, great. The Shyamalan's. I don't know if he knew that. I'm sure he wrote it before, the whole Infinity War thing, because now that's the thing of killing off the superheroes was oh wow, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. So this one, he kills off the heroes and the villains. He kills off everybody, all the supers, and I was like, great that he did that. But I was like, okay, the twist is that one of them has to be alive. I was sure that one of them was going to stay alive. I was hoping it was Bruce Willis, but I was thinking more that it would have been Mr. Glass.
I can see that.
But that's not this other twist. Yeah. You find out that Mr. Glass has been then rerouting the footage from the cameras to show everybody
to a private server that he then sent an email after his death to his mother, and I think also the son
girl
and the girl.
And
and I'm pretty sure he sent it to some of his the other people that were on the message board, because it confirmed that not only was he not he had multiple escape attempts. He wasn't trying to escape at all. He was going into their computers and trying to bring out the people hey, superheroes are real online, and it just wasn't going anywhere. He was even using his real name.
Yeah, Francis. So I was hoping kind of more so that Bruce Willis would have stayed alive and come back, and then there would have been that thing where he's able to see Glass's body or his grave or something, and then or in a body bag, and is able to say, okay, I understand why you did everything, and kind of have that. From that kind of conclusion from Unbreakable.
I really think they're setting it up to be that his son will hand over.
But is there going to be another movie? That's a big question. Is there going to be another movie in this universe?
There wasn't going to be another movie after Unbreakable. So you never know. I think, here's my thought. Overall, like on the meta, I think that it was like Shyamalan realized that he has a way to create his own extended universe, which is like a lot of people have been trying to do, and he sort of incidentally created. I would not be that unsurprised if he said all of my movies are connected somehow. Sort of pull a Dark Tower. Stephen King has a story called, Stephen King writes a bunch of different horror novels. The Dark Tower series shows that they're connected, that all the universes can be connected. I could see Shyamalan trying to do something like that, and that's where my thought comes that something was going to happen with the Glass's mother, the victim, and Overseer's son.
Casey, her name's Casey.
And right? I really believe that a lot of the patients that were still in the hospital, I think, in my opinion, that some of them, or maybe even all of them, also had abilities that they'd just been able to convince them that they didn't, and that was one of the reasons they were trying to keep them from seeing what was happening outside. And I think now that they saw the actual super stuff happening, they realized I'm not crazy, and there's going to be a breakout from there.
Here's the thing: I think I would have much preferred it. Like I said, I want that movie where Bruce Willis is like fighting crime and fighting criminals. I would have loved it to where
cool.
There would have been like some guy who was like hunting down, like Bruce Willis finds out there's this one guy who's like hunting down, like who's in a Marvel, the hunter guy.
Craven the Hunter.
Craven the Hunter, isn't he hunting down like the superheroes or something?
No, he just
or like Spider-Man or something. Yeah. So like if there would have been that where like setup where it's like this one character, he has a certain name, and he's hunting down Bruce Willis, and there's like a conversation, and then he goes away, and at the end you see when the SWAT team comes in, you realize that that's the Hunter guy too, and he's part of that group or something. And I kind of set that up so where there's more of an antagonism in the company, because I felt like I like the idea that there's a secret society, but it didn't feel like they were like the big bads that I kind of wanted them to be.
I understand what you're saying, but I think that's how
it didn't feel.
He wanted it to feel that the secret society is fighting for. He really leaned in that they're not that bad, that they're trying to be the organization to protect humankind. I can see your point of view. I disagree. That's all.
Well, but that's not the movie.
I don't think a certain guy would be a good name for a villain either. It's like, oh no, a certain guy is attacking me. He's all like, now I'm uncertain guy.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, I would have made this movie completely different, but I mean, that's me. Of course, I would make every movie that I see completely different.
I wouldn't. I do most of them like just one small thing unnoticeable. I'd be like, some of the guys have a club. Some of them have the diamond. Some of them have like the spade.
That would have been. I would have liked that. See.
Oh, and because what is it? The whole thing with trading cards having a lineage back a few thousands of years, like they're older than chess. It's like this is the organization of order.
Yeah.
We are like the descendants of royalty who say that like there should only be mankind and there should be like one small thing. That's how you do it.
Here's the thing. Okay, the one thing. Okay, so I'm not certain if there's going to be another movie in this universe. That's
I'm not certain either,
because because they kill off all the main characters that we've had in Unbreakable, and in Split. We now have the secondary characters who are kind of could be main characters, but like it seems like Shyamalan sets up all these ideas and all this expansion for this bigger world, but without Bruce Willis or Samuel Jackson or
he wants cheaper actors
or James McAvoy.
That's what it is.
It's like those were the guys those characters that you were following through the story. Now that they're not there, it'd be interesting to see the son and Samuel Jackson's mom and Anya Taylor-Joy's character follow through, but they're not superheroes, so they're normal people. So
they showed that she might have an ability, and they had hinted at before that his son might have something. And what if he becomes a Batman type character? It already showed that he kind of was like into that stuff. And
okay, so
he's a fit kid. He's got the fitness. He could decide, I don't need a power. Okay,
so I think I need to watch Unbreakable and Split and Glass back to back to back to see if it changes any of the negative feelings that I have.
Here's my quick thought. You're going to say it's a bad idea, but no offense against Shyamalan, I could see him doing it. Turns out he only killed, the Horde isn't dead, just Kevin Wendell Crumb. Now there's no stopping the beast.
I would love that. I would love that.
It turns out the Overseer, it's like he has died, but because water is his weakness, when they try to cremate him, he rises from it. They CGI him, and they get
I'm all for that.
Hold on.
I'm all for that.
The guy who played him in Loopers or
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
He burns and rises as Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Boom. And Glass.
I would go for that.
Glass is still alive. He's just even more of like in a machine and like in an iron lung.
That's what I was expecting. Glass to kind of come back in kind of some suit or something, and be like a Magneto kind of thing, or That's the problem. So that's the problem though. Since these movies are set so much in the real world, all those ideas that we have that we'd like to see get more into the comic booky superhero realm of the other movies, and I think it would take away kind of the flavor of these movies. But
maybe the next one, it's going to be totally unconnected from those in the aspect of having villains, and maybe you'll just see it from the secret society's point of view of putting down new heroes and villain combos.
Let's wrap it up here. I think so. But let's wrap it. But one question, let's wrap it up on this question. When you saw it, was it a packed theater?
It was. And this is what's surprising to me. When I bought the tickets only maybe like a half a week earlier, there was only 4 other tickets sold. And most other movies that I've been watching recently have been close to sold out by the time I looked at them. But the theater ended up being packed, so I was surprised.
Same with me. When I went, I went to get the tickets at the theater, there, and there was plenty of space, but then it filled up pretty quickly.
Same.
Within the hour. I got there I got there half an hour early. And half an hour before I could even sit in the theater. And it filled up. So what was the audience reaction overall?
Overall, pretty positive. It seemed like I got a good vibe from it. There was a lot of conversations like this going on. Yeah. I watched it. You watched it at the Draft House, so it's more of a film viewing audience. Alamo Draft House.
You saw the Draft House?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's, why it seemed positive. Like I'd say, if nothing else, it caught people's attention. I could definitely feel like there were some people who were like, what?
It would seem at the end of the movie,
what's in Oz?
At the end of my screening, it seemed everybody was like all for it. I kind of felt that kind of up and down, like, what? But it was surprising that this whole family of like 10 people came in, and they took up because I was in the second row. They took up most of the first row, and then all like the younger kids, like teenagers, sat in my row because there was like space. I was sitting right here. There was like a whole bunch of space, and there was some other people sitting. So they kind of took that over. I was actually surprised at how much the teenagers were into the movie, and everybody kind of laughed at the right places, and everybody was interested. Nice. And at the end, they were kind of liked it. So that's a funny thing is like there's a lot of talk online about it being a bad movie, being a good movie, but it seems like the audience is kind of like it.
I just enjoyed it. You said it was profitable.
It was made on a $20 million budget, which is cheap in Hollywood terms.
For a big movie.
Because it's Blumhouse. Blumhouse production company, they do movies on the cheap. It
used to be atrocious, and it's slowly getting better.
It's already made, in opening weekend, it's made at least $40 million. The exact number wasn't out when I saw it, but it made at least $40 million. So it's going to be profitable.
Yes.
It depends to see how much profit, but it's going to be profitable. The funny thing is, like, I'm looking on like Rotten Tomatoes. Right now has a 37% critic rating. Yeah. And audience score though is 78%. So it's like average.
Yeah.
High average. Does that make sense?
A lot of times the critics hate movies that audiences love.
But see, this is one that we'll see how it turns out. As it
I
continues.
enjoyed it. I'd recommend it.
I would too.
Thumbs up. You give it the sideways thumbs is
slightly up. I mean, we might get sued for doing the thumbs up, but
no, from Roman style. See, I'm doing it. I'm not doing this. I'm doing this, and you're doing this.
So, okay, if you like Unbreakable, if you like Split, I would recommend you see this movie. I just don't know if y'all like it.
I think you'll like it. You'll enjoy it. You'll appreciate it. It's a good time to go out to a theater.
I need to rewatch this movie.
Check it, enjoy it. Don't forget to check out the rest of our content. Don't forget to subscribe, like, ring that bell, and share. Once again, I'm Rodez.
I'm Roman.